Hi, all. We'll get started in the next 3 minutes. While you're at it, if you can quickly grab a pen and a notepad so that you can make some notes as you go through this session. And I just would like to know who all are there in the room. So if you can type out the name of your city from where you are, so that I get a feel of who's streaming from where, which part of the world. So that would be nice to have. I'll join you guys in another 2 minutes. Lovely. We've got people from Hyderabad, some from Bangalore. Lovely, lovely. Please do type out which city you're from, so I know who's streaming and from which part of India or across the world. So just so that's easy for me to understand. We'll get started. It's sharp 7, and let's get started. So let me start with. Let me tell you what's happening in the industry first, right? What's going on? The fact of the matter is that, and there's no way to sugarcoat this, right? So we all are able to understand how the economy is. The economy is not bad. It's not a bad economy. It's not by bad luck. But the reality is that uh, the jobs market, etc., are not a great place to be in today, right? And we are all starting to feel that. So let me talk about three things that I feel is making a big impact. One essentially is the impact of AI, right? So I think there is a massive impact of AI that is happening, and we are all starting to feel that impact coming in. And unfortunately, the rules are changing so fast, and some of the rules have already changed, and no one told you that the rules are changing. And that's the status today. So, what is really happening with the AI space, right? The AI is changing the way we are working, and especially it is not the factory workers that are getting impacted. It is the knowledge workers which is getting impacted. Normally, you would think that automations and bots, etc., impact the ground level folks, but what's happening with AI and the impact that it's creating, it's really eating up the work that knowledge workers, people who had a lot of experience, a lot of there was a lot of judgment in our work, and there were things that that came only with experience, and that's the kind of work that the AI is eating up today, right? So if you look at the numbers, it's quite substantial, right? It's about few years back, I was working in a large organization with something called the RPA, robotic process automation. And when we were trying to deploy it, and I was thinking about, oh, this is really poor and not, it's never going to be able to scale. And in the past 5 years, today we are seeing some of the impact of how AI is changing the way we think about processes, right? We used to think about processes as a sequential set of activities. And historically, that was all we were taught about, right? You have something and it follows one after another. But today, that model of processes being sequential is changing completely. Something's happening in parallel, it's happening together, and we have no way of dealing with it. So even after all of this, including even when ChatGPT came, every year the rate at which the speed at which it is moving is almost doubling in about every year, right? It's faster than the Moore's law. So what does it mean for a lot of people in the corporate? And I think a lot of people are already facing this. They are going on to, there is a certain amount of job losses. If you go and look up the last 24 months across different companies, you look at the newspaper, news clips, you will realize that there's a lot of job losses. It's happening at the middle management level. And, people are laying off thousands of workers. And people are getting laid off, and it's not happening because they were not competent, or they were not capable, or they didn't know, or they were not doing their job well. It's simply happening because that organization structure is changing drastically. It is no more required. And what is that impact? It is felt on the middle management, which means that the analyst, the project managers, the program managers, the leaders, the team leaders, all are facing the impact, right? Vice president, directors, you name it. You name the level at which human resources as an organization, learning and develop as an organization, operations, every single part of this is feeling that heat of the AI, right? So now what's happening, if you think about what is the AI doing, it's creating the pressure on the middle management. So there's a compression happening at the middle management level. So as the middle management squeeze happens, there's a lot of people who are at that level, who spend decades of having worked, having created experience, knowing the business extremely well, are losing out in this journey. So what does that lead us to start thinking about? One is to fundamentally ask yourself, if your role disappeared tomorrow, and not because of your fault, not because you are not capable or you are not done the job well, you may be a top performer, but for some reason, for an org design that is changing, if your role were to disappear tomorrow, how long would you be able to sustain your current lifestyle? 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And I think I want to take a few seconds here. If you have the pen and paper in your hand, I wanted to write it down. How many months will you be able to run without having that role that you're doing today? Write it down. And that leads, if you have taken a few minutes, a few seconds to write it down, and so all 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever you feel, write it down. And then the more harder question is that, is this what you feel you would be doing in the next 10 years? Or forget 10 years, even 5 years or 7 years down the line. Whatever you're doing, what do you think is going to happen to you? And where do you think you're going to end up? Are you going to be able to follow the trajectory that you always planned, that career aspiration that you have? Are you going to be able to reach that point with whatever is happening? And this may not be a 30-second answer. This might need a little more time for you to think about, but do write this down, take these 2 questions and really ask yourself, with the rate at which technology is changing, do you believe that where you will end up in the next 5 to 7 years, what you're doing today, what's going to be the outcome? Yeah. So thank you so much. I see some quick messages. Thank you so much for putting those messages in 9 to 12 months. Thank you so much. Now, this brings me to the second part of it, right? What also I am noticing, as I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, I work with a lot of people who have come out of the corporate, including myself, one of the things I'm starting to see is that there is a silver lining to all of this. Today, if you take a single person with a laptop and a good understanding of a particular business, with the help of the likes of Claude and Codex and others, right, ChatGPTs of the world, you can make a substantial amount of money and wealth. So not that everything is bad, right? So there are going to be jobs that are going to come out. It's not that all the jobs are lost. So there is going to be opportunity for people to do something different. And I don't think this was possible even 5 years back or 3 years back. Like I said, it was there. The opportunity was there. You could always start a business. You could start an entrepreneurship. But today, that change is becoming really, really faster. You have the ability with a couple of, you don't need 50 people. You don't need a large technology team to sit behind you to develop products and sell products and make fantastic outcomes, etc. But what you need is a clear strategy. And the transition from employment to ownership is no more a simple dream that I want to one day create products, I want to one day become my owner of my company. It is not a dream anymore. It's likely happening with a lot of people. And I meet a lot of people, and I'll give you my quick background at a later stage, but I meet a lot of entrepreneurs every single week. Every single week I meet them, I discuss about it. And so people are moving to this, right? So the window to do this is starting to open up, and this is a great time for you to think about, am I doing what am I doing? Am I going to be able to do something that I always aspired for in the next 5 to 7 years? And if not, how do I figure out an alternate model that does not have to impact the dream, but it can still take you to that place doing something else slightly differently? And so we'll talk a little bit about that in the session today. With that, I wanted to show you a picture, right? Now, I'll give you a quick story. So if you remember nothing after this session, I want you to remember this one story. Hopefully you will. There was a villager who was walking one day into the forest and trying to gather wood. And suddenly, out of the blue, he heard a roar of a lion. So he panicked like everybody else. If you hear the roar of a lion, you panic. So he ran really fast and he climbed, he scurried to the nearest tree that he could get on, and he climbed the tree because he thought, at least the lion will not be able to climb that tree that high. Let me climb. And he climbed the tree and he went up and sat there. As soon as he sat there, he could see the lion on the ground. He could see the tail of the lion, and he realized, oh my God, I've saved myself. Now, as he sat there, he realized that he was hungry. And then there was a honeybee hive out there. So he put his finger and hand in to see if he could get some honey. And as soon as he did that, what happened? The honeybee started attacking him and stinging him. But there was no other way. He couldn't even go down. So he said, let me sit here, take the sting of the bees. And then he kept having a little honey, but he kept getting bitten by the wasp and the bees. Now, as he started pondering, how do I get out of the situation? He saw the river out there. And in the river, he said, hey, I'm a good swimmer. I can jump into the river and then I can cross it. As he looked at the river, and he realized that there were logs floating on the river. And then he realized they were not logs. They were crocodiles floating in the river. So while during all of this, he was moving, and suddenly the tree shook. And then he realized the tree was a dead tree. So the tree was almost dying. It is already dead. So if you move too much, there's a chance the tree would fall either in the river or on the ground. Either way, it was not going to be good for him. So he sat there, sitting there and wondering what to do, kept taking a little bit of the honey and licking it, feeling good that he had the honey, getting stung by the bee. Now, I want you to reflect on the story and ask yourself, who is this person who's sitting on this dead tree? Yeah. Now, it is a difficult place to be in. And some of us have put ourselves in that situation unconsciously, unknowingly, and we are sitting on that dead tree. This journey is not yours. I have been on the tree, sitting in that same place, thinking about how to get out of that situation. And so over the session, I'll give you a little bit of idea. And what I have been able to do was to find a rope, catch it, and get to the other side of the bank. And I'm going to try and give you how I have done it through the program called Stride. So I'll tell you what I have done, what worked and what did not work. Will it work all of it for you? I don't think so. But will some of it work for you? I think some of them will work. And some of the places where I have made the mistakes, you don't need to repeat it. You can make new mistakes and you can do other things to find a way across. But I hope the story is something that you understand what's happening in your life and the job that you are in. the role that you're stuck in is something that you can resonate with. All right, so let me quickly move. Put in the chat if you can resonate. Put in the chat so I know that there are some thoughts that are coming in from your mind. So one of the things I've realized as I speak to so many entrepreneurs, like I said before, startup founders, entrepreneurs, people who want to get out of the corporate, start working on some of these places. We all have the intelligence, right? We have worked so many years in the corporate space. We have worked in we've worked in difficult situations. We've handled difficult environments. We've handled difficult problems, and some of them even big or small, but they were issues that you were able to manage, and that is the reason you were able to grow within your organizations to where you are. You also have the experience. You also understand the business. You have a strong foundation of what you have been doing, and you have that. A third element, you also have the work ethics, because it's not possible that you have grown through the ranks and you don't have the work ethics to be disciplined, to go into office, do the right things, stick by it, get the results, etc. So what I've realized is that, and I put myself in the same. So I have reasonable amount of understanding of what the business is. I have good amount of years of experience. I have the determination and the focus. So what's missing, right? What is missing for a lot of us is the mindset, and I'll talk a little bit about it. The reality is that we all come out of the corporate thinking we want to do different things. But I think there is an element that we miss, and I'll cover this on the first part of the stride, is basically the thinking pattern of a employee versus the thinking pattern of a entrepreneur or a business owner, and they are very different. That is a starting point of that change. So we need a system that helps us to move our mindset and then shift every single thing to start thinking like an entrepreneur, so that we can start using our skills and capabilities to make money, to help ourselves, to help the organization, to help other people, right? To employ them, so on and so forth. So what most of us miss is a particular system. And I've tried putting a system together. I haven't been an experience of doing a lot of program work, project work, Six Sigma, Lean, etc. And that helps me to think how mental models that I would like to deploy. And this is something that I have tuned and found out over the last 4 years. So I'll kind of share that with you guys. Now, before I share the STRIDE model, which is the core framework that we want to speak about, I want to talk to you about something called the key principles, right, which are required. Now, I call this the capital equation. Most of us don't really think through it like this. The FC, which is our financial capital, which is what we all are aspiring as entrepreneurs. If you're currently working in a corporate space, you are making some money. You want to become an entrepreneur, obviously you want to make more money than what you are making as an employee, or at least meet it as soon as possible. So the financial capital is what we all chase, what we all want to achieve. We want to grow our company. We talk about it in metrics, different metrics. We talk about it in is our revenue, profitability, EBITDA, whatever you call it. You have multiple financial metrics. And I am talking about all of those metrics put as a financial capital. But all of us unconsciously fail to understand what is the metrics below that. Right? So the financial capital is one part of this metric. Underneath that is a formula that I've realized works, is that you need an intellectual capital. You need to have, and I'll talk about little about each of these, but you need to have a certain amount of intellectual capital that needs to be invested. You need to have a social capital, which is SC, that is required for you to be able to generate financial capital. And you need a certain amount of emotional capital that is required and is part of this entire equation to generate financial capital. Most of us focus on FC. We don't focus on IC, SC, and EC component at all. But they are the building blocks of how much you're doing today. So if you are an entrepreneur, and this applies to anywhere, even if you are trying to raise fund, right? You're trying to raise funding, right? You want to get investors. The same thing applies. You want investors to put money in you, FC. What is the investors thinking about? They are thinking, does this entrepreneur have the intellectual capital? Does this entrepreneur and the business owner have social capital, and do they have the emotional capital to handle difficult situations, right? So because your product is not out there as as a entrepreneur or a founder, your product is not out there. So what are the people who are going to invest money, investors thinking about you? They don't have the product in hand, they don't know how much it will sell, but they are betting on you. And when they bet on you, what are they looking for? They're looking for IC, SC, and EC. Right? And this was a very aha moment for me when I learned it from others, saying that, hey, oh, really? I never thought about this way, because I was chasing FC all the while when I started off this entire journey. But let me talk a little bit. So if you are finding this useful, just type in yes on the notes. If you at least put in FC is equal to IC plus SC plus EC, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience of each of this, right? Now, the intellectual capital is essentially, let me get some water. The intellectual capital is essentially your expertise, your domain knowledge. But more so ever is the ability to narrow it into something that the market will pay for. You have to understand this side of the story. Without this, you will not realize that you might be very sharp, you might be very intelligent, and you might have been a very senior person in your existing organization, but the ability to reduce, narrow, is something which is very difficult, because we all get attached to some things that we are really good at, or sometimes we feel that we're good at. But it is important to narrow it down to a point where the market will pay money for it, because that is the important aspect of getting your FC. The social capital is essentially the room that you are in, the relationships that you hold, and the reach and the connections that you have, and you have done it intentionally over time, right? I'll touch a little bit about my experience here. And the last bit of it is the emotional capital, which is the discipline to act in times when you don't have all of the information, and you have to do it free of your ego, free of sometimes having put in money and that money will not come back. And also a little bit of the fact that there's a fear, hey, this may not work, I'm not built for it. But how do you do it without all of those, is what that emotional capital is all about. So let me give you my own experience of each of this, so that it'll kind of sit with you a little bit more, hopefully. Now, when I started off, right, on my biggest journey, my biggest problem was the fact that I was good at many things. Obviously, right, if you think about it, all of us, having spent years, if you have spent 10, 15 years in your company, in the organizations, you become good at many different things. So when I was thinking about it, I was really good at career coaching. So I could guide people in terms of how they should work in the organization, how they should grow, etc. I was also very good at business, right? So I was also good at business because that's always I wanted. I have always been reading about it. I always follow people like Elon Musk. That's something I want to always help. And I could say that, hey, I could help in business coaching. I was also a leadership trainer. I could train, because within companies, I would deliver trainings. I would deliver Six Sigma trainings, lean trainings, but I would also deliver negotiation training. I would also deliver trainings on sales. So I could become a leadership trainer. Six Sigma, I'm a master black belt and all of that. Definitely, I can help OpEx. I can be a process consultant for MSMEs, and I could be an OpEx advisor. The challenge with all of this is that when you are trying to be all of this, what is happening to your intellectual capital, right? What is happening to your brain, your intellect? It is spread everywhere. You are just trying to figure out, where will money come from? Oh, I did 2 coaching in the morning. I did 1 business coaching in the evening, 1 leadership training on Thursday, Six Sigma meeting on Friday. So nothing. It is all about just going and performing some activities for the sake of generating money. You're not trying to understand the business. You're not trying to understand the customer journeys. You're not trying to understand what are the really big problems. You're not focusing on all of these. And so, as I kind of learned it the hard way, that there is a need for us is to narrow, for me to narrow down. And so, over a period of time, then I realized my biggest strength was how do I bring all of these capabilities? And today, my focus is biggest on data and analytics for mid-sized businesses. I look at hospitals, manufacturing, asset-heavy industries, and say, how do we help them to improve their EBITDA? How do we help them to improve their margin? How do we help them to improve their resilience? But the focus is on predominantly 80% or 90% of my time, the focus is on how do I grow the businesses of these people? How do we help them to better predict outcomes? How do we help them to make better decisions? So what it allows me to do is then it allows me to start thinking from the customer's point of view, thinking about their businesses, thinking about understanding what could be the challenges in these kind of businesses, figuring out how to connect with those set of people and talk to them about this, right? So that is the first of that IC component. So essentially, you need to narrow down and focus on something very important. And like Seth Godin says, right, your goal is to find the smallest viable market. If you are finding even 2 clients who want you and are interested in you and they genuinely want your product, it is easy to understand from there you can scale. You cannot scale from nowhere. From a very small point, you can scale, you can become big. But if you have no point, you cannot scale, because that becomes extremely difficult to do. And I started resonating with what Seth Godin said later on and saying that, oh, this is what it means. So let me now move to the second part of the component, is the emotional capital. Now, a lot of times we will do things where it will not work. And a lot of times this is the place where it becomes a little difficult, because then this is the place also where you start associating some of your financial capital goals with your self-worth. You start asking yourself, hey, I'm not making the kind of money that I was making. Am I worthy? Am I someone who's capable? Why is it not working? I did this with the best of intention, but they never got the results we want. So this is something which I fortunately have been very much blessed, because I had an experience of having worked in multiple organizations where I had 2 roles, and I would switch these roles every 4 years. So I would work as a operations lead, I would work as head of operations, and then for a couple of years I would become an individual contributor. I would go into a project manager role, I would go into a program manager role, I would go to a Six Sigma black belt role, master black belt role, whatever, right? So it was an individual contributor roles. So every time you become accustomed to managing teams, feeling good, feeling that you have a lot of people under you, something changes and you become an individual. You have no one under you. You have to influence people to get something done, and things like that. So what it does for as a leader within the organization, it created a certain amount of detachment process for me. So I would look at the processes and not feel that I am in the process. I'm not in the problem. I am looking at the problem from outside. And so this when it happened a couple of times over my career, I started having a very distance approach towards the outlook and the business I started. Right. So I would look at it and say, what's going wrong? What's the problem? And so this, fortunately, is something when I came out and started practicing in my business, it was easier for me to do. I looked at it and said, as a consultant, how do I look at my business? What's working? What's not working? When I'm trying to do the sales, this model, it's not working. Why is it not working? What are we missing? Which step are we missing? Which part of the process are we missing? So this is something that you've got to always have in your kitty. And if you don't have this capability, you need to now start looking at developing this particular capability. Because when you get very emotionally attached to the problem or the situation, then what happens is that you are then too caught up in it to say that, hey, I need to pivot, I need to do something different, and what is the next best move that I can make? And that becomes difficult to take. And I've seen a lot of people going through this part of this journey where they find it really difficult because they've kind of gotten off a very structured employer view, and now finds it difficult to run your own business and say, I need to make that shift. So if this resonates with you, give me an EC on the chat so I know that you guys are following this. But this has been an easy part for me. I'm not saying that this is always easy, because I've kind of worked with a lot of entrepreneurs who find this very difficult to get through. The last bit of it is a component that I feel is, and I went through this entire difficult part, which is essentially the social capital. Now, all of us have a belief that we are working for a long time. We know a lot of people in the corporate space, especially. We talk about networking opportunities. We generally sit and have, we go out, have coffee, we have, speed networking sessions. All of that the organization tries to do. But you really don't understand what is networking unless you start your own entrepreneurship and your own business. It's a very different world out there. Now, why I say this is because I'll give you one particular experience. So when I was working in one of the large organizations, I used to work with someone who was very senior. And me and my boss, we used to work together for this gentleman. And we did some really, really good programs and projects for him. And he was very close. So when over a period of time, and then he shifted out of the company, he went and joined one of the largest. He was the chief technology officer. He is the chief technology officer of one of the largest Indian companies. And so when we started off this thing about 2 years back, we were like, why don't we? He knows us well. We have done some remarkably good work for him. He was very happy with us, and he was directly our stakeholder and boss kind of thing. So we said, why don't we reach out to him and have a conversation? I'm sure he knows enough about us to trust us to give something. And so we reached out to him. We engaged with him. He was very polite. He was very nice. He sat down with us, gave us time, spoke to us. And then he said, absolutely, why don't you talk to my chief of staff? And then we spoke to the chief of staff. And then we tried following up. We checked. We did everything. And over the next 3, 4, 5 months, nothing happened. We kept following up, and we were not able to understand why it was not working. I mean, he knows our capability. He knows who we are, what we can do for him. Then why not give us an opportunity? Any which way. So we kind of moved on from there. And there was a learning from there for me at a later point in time. But for me, then as I started networking, as I started reaching out to groups, as I started getting into different rooms, different let of people, different entrepreneurs. And one of the days I was actually in my son's school, picking him up after school, and I met one of his friend's father, and I'd known him for some time before. We'd spoken, but not a close. And I told him that I'd come out and I was I've started up this thing, and he said immediately, hey, why don't you come and let's have a conversation. We'll see what we can do, because I'm there's something which you're doing, so looks like I'm quite interested in something like this, and let's work it. So and that became my first client, right? So what I also realized that sometimes we know people, we feel they are the right people who can give us the work. They're very senior at times, and there's a reason why that person was not able to give us work, and I later on realized. But what I'm trying to tell you is that your network of who you are is going to have to shift dramatically. The people that you currently know may not be, and most likely not be, people who will give you your breaks, who will give you the roles and give you the opportunities or the business opportunities that come. So this is very important, and this is a pivot point that we all have to understand, that the people who are still thinking about us and we are thinking that they will help us, they still think about us as an employee in their organization. They don't think about us as an owner, and the roles have shifted. And as a result, we need to do things differently. And think about it. This person was running a company of 300 people, right? He immediately asked me to come. He sat down. We worked on a deal. And so, was it a win-win for him? It was a win-win for him, because I gave him one of the best deals that he could have gotten, right? Because I was not in a position to negotiate or ask him more. He got a great deal. I got a first start break. And this is the important part of knowing who are the right people, who are the right relationship, and which are the rooms that you need to be in to make this breakthrough happen. If you find this, if you understand what I'm talking about, type in social capital, SC, in the chat. I know a lot of people have said easy, But what I was trying to tell you was type in SC in the social capital in the chat, so I know that you guys are able to follow me and see where we are headed. Now, as you do this, quick check for all of you guys. I have been speaking for some time now, for about 32 minutes. I would like to check if you would like to know a little bit more about myself. I'll quickly go ahead and introduce and give you a little bit of background about who I am. I have about 27 years of experience, 23 of them in the corporate. I was at a senior role in one of the large multinational organizations. The last 4 years have been as a founder of an consulting organization, Amanstra, and essentially we focus on analytics, and of course we help MSMEs. I know there are people who out there who are definitely looking and working with MSMEs. We do that also. I have a doctorate in quality management. I've got a Six Sigma Master Black Belt from Indian Statistical Institute. I'm a TED speaker, LinkedIn Top Voice for 2 years in a row, and others, right? So I'm also kind of, as an Amanstra, as an organization, we are a startup, part of the startup ecosystem, and we are obviously MSME certified and registered. So I also do a lot of work for young entrepreneurs, essentially from IIT Madras, the startup cell. I help them to learn, and so I try and do as much as I can in terms of working with NASSCOM, SMEs, mentoring some of the companies, and things like that. I'm also part of multiple groups like Andhra Chamber of Commerce, Madras Management Association, NASSCOM, and various others. The reason I'm giving you is this: whatever I'm trying to tell you is that whatever I've said till now, and I'm going to say, is nothing to do with motivation. I'm not trying to motivate you to do one thing or the other. I'm not trying to say that the road behind is easy and it'll work. I'm not trying to tell you any of that. What I'm trying to tell you is that whatever I'm telling you is driven with a set of data, experience, having worked with others, having failed multiple times, and also experiencing what other entrepreneurs are going through, and that's what I'm trying to give you in a short gist. So this slide is to kind of tell you that what I'm talking has got more experiential rather than just the theoretical, what we learned from books and theory, right? So the honest version of how I got here is what I've defined as a STRIDE framework, right? So where I have made mistakes, where I have faltered, I will try and give you those information, and then we can understand and then pick up from there. So the first component of this entire thing is that if you are working today and you are thinking about starting your own business, your own firm, your own organization, and that is a way to go, like I said in the beginning, the first part of it is to shift that mindset from an employee to an owner. So what is the difference between an employee and an owner, right? And this is a question that you've got to really ask yourself. And most of us have never shifted out of that. And even if we have left our job, we have come out, we have started our own business, but still we are in the employee mindset. And I'll give you examples of it so that you can resonate with it. As an employee, what are we really thinking about, right? Even in companies which are really big, they allow us a lot of freedom. They talk about curiosity. They talk about innovation. They talk about all of these things. But however, in any organization, unless it's a very young startup, most of the larger organizations, these are words that are followed and they try their best. But eventually you have to understand you are an employee. And as an employee, you have a certain amount of responsibility. So your job is to make sure that those whatever you're responsible for, are executed to the best of your ability. The second component of it is that you will have a hierarchy set, which means that you will have a boss, you will have a manager, you will have a leader who is there above you they trust you, they know that you will do the job, but they still have to verify that you are actually doing what has been expected of you. So unless you are at probably the CEO level, etc., where there's a board, etc., but still that oversight is there. Now, as an owner, this shifts completely. Now, you may not be big enough to have a board, etc., right? So what happens to you as an owner? Suddenly, you have that responsibility list is not there. You are the owner, so there is no one to go and check with. So this creates a certain problem for all of us, is in terms of, when you shift to that ownership mindset, is that it you don't know how to now what to do next, how to switch that over. Because what is the owner trying to do? An owner's job is not to follow responsibility or to think about the boss or think about that. Their job is to figure out what does the market need, that I can go out and sell, that I can go out and position, that I can go out and tell people that if you pick this, your problem will get solved. It's not a responsibility. It is it is the mindset shift that you are not anymore responsible for a set of actions. You are responsible for finding that market. You're responsible for getting that understanding of what the market requires, and you have to go and pitch it and sell it. So that is the first shift in a mindset in the ownership component. Now, this takes a little bit of time sometimes, and sometimes it does not come to some people. And as a result, you will see, and I'll give you an example of someone that I was working with recently also. So he came out of the corporate. He was a head of HR of a large, reasonable size organization, mid-size organization, Indian organization, and so they, they had, they kind of looked at, taking that layer of people out. And so, so after the first few days, he reached out and said, Amir, I want to look at entrepreneurship. I want to see I can help people, and I want to create a model by which I become a fractional HR head or CHRO for different organizations. So fantastic, great. So how do you want to go about doing it? So, and in my traditional lean thinking way, I generally start asking people, how does a day today look like for you, right? So that's the mindset that I have. I want to find out what are you really doing? What are you really up to? And so he told me that, Amir, I'm struggling in the morning because I have this. I wake up, do the set up whatever is required at home. My wife leaves and my daughter leaves for school. My wife leaves for job, and then I read newspaper for about 2 hours, and then I look at some research. I looking at some companies, and so that got me thinking. Why is someone looking at in the morning when you have the highest amount of cognitive capability? Why are you sitting and looking at newspaper for 2 hours? It might be a small thing. You might think, hey, I mean, that is okay for someone to look at newspaper 2 hours, but it tells you that he is still in the employee mode. He is still in the mode where someone will reach out to him and start finding and giving him opportunities so that he can become a fractional CHR. That shift has to happen internally with people. That shift of ownership. Hey, morning, I need to go out. I need to look for opportunities. I can read newspaper. I can read newspaper for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, right? But that structure has to come in where I have the highest cognitive capability, and what am I doing with it? What am I trying to achieve with it? Now, a lot of people will struggle with these small things, but these are some of the ownership mindset, right? How do I connect with people? Can I go to some meetings? Can I go to some conferences in the morning? Right? There are people who are meeting. Businesses are meeting. They figure out the way to meet at 7 o'clock in the morning. Where can I go? So this is a shift that is sometimes difficult to make. And this is something, unless you do it, you will not be able to find the right kind of networks and businesses if you don't spend time on shifting this mindset. So the first of that stride element is S. So type in S if you have understood shift. Type in shift on the chat wherever you guys are, so I know that you guys are there. If you have some interesting questions, if you are struggling with something, type out the questions, and I will try to figure out how to answer them. I will look through all of these sites, and I will try and answer all the questions, right? But if you got the shift component, I'll now move into the turning your skills into the business model, which is the second part of the mindset. Now that you are thinking like an owner, how do this will automatically come to you. If you have a certain capability, if you have a certain skill set, which you already have honed over 15 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, you need to find out, how do I turn the skill into a business model? How does it start making revenue for me? And this is where you need to start thinking about, how can I create a plural revenue stream, not one revenue stream. And a lot of people don't understand the difference. Let us say that, I want to become a consultant, right? Hey, I want to become a consultant, and I want to go out and do consulting work for MSMEs. Now that's great. What are the key skills that you have which will help MSMEs, first of all? which means you need to go back to the previous model that I taught you. FC is equal to SC plus IC plus EC, right? Which part of that are you going to help the MSMEs with? Are you going to help them with FC? Are you going to be someone who's an angel investor, become an angel investor and invest money? Well, that could be one way to help them. Do you want to help them in terms of EC? Essentially meaning that, you can help them with their coaching journeys, helping them to kind of focus on how to build system or whatever, right? Helping them from their mindset point of view. That could be one model. If you want to become something which is, hey, can I develop a product for them that will make it easy for them to run their business, right? You're using your intellectual capital, right? You could also say that, hey, I'll help you to set up your MSME. You might have to go through a lot of struggles. Don't worry, I'll come in and help you. I'll help you on the finance side of it. I'll help you on the HR side of it, whatever it is, right? So, but you need to understand that your skills has to be converted into a business model. It has to have a lean canvas. You need to create a lean business canvas for yourself. How does it translate? And in that canvas, there is an element called revenue streams. You need to find out how you are going to monetize them. What I'm not telling you is that do many things. Again, I'm not coming to that. I'm saying that in that specific thing, are there different ways for you to earn revenue? It could be small, it could be a percentile of what the major one is, but you start looking at ways in which your revenue streams become multiple, which means by doing the same thing, you are creating a mechanism by which you have multiple sources of revenue come in. And so you are not tomorrow stuck with one thing, one assignment. A lot of consultants go through this, and I had this experience myself, and I want to share this with you. If you are a consultant and you come out of the corporate and you become a consultant or you become a coach, the life cycle of it is that you will find a client, you will work with them for 6 to 9 months, and again after 9 months, you will go back to trying to find another client. This cycle is too long. And by the time you find the next client, you're running another. And sometimes you might find 3 clients, but you cannot handle them. So you need to find the mechanics by which your revenue stream, you have recurring revenue coming in from certain things, and your main revenue could be one of the major big consulting assignments and so on, right? So all I'm trying to tell you is think about it from this perspective. What are my skills? How do I convert this into a business model, right? The third component is the rule, right? Ruling your niche is very important. Again, I go back to this. What does the niche in this case mean, right? So I stopped moving the slide, so sorry. Into business model, right? So rule your niche, right? What I essentially mean by this is that you have one market, you solve a problem for a particular market. You solve one problem and you try to solve for one audience. Why I say this is that you don't need to be, and if you have noticed this, and sometimes you might find it useful to watch, that not all the people who are really running good high revenue companies are not the most talented people in the world, or not the smartest people in the world, right? But they have figured out one technique, which is how do I become relevant to the specific types of people who need my service. So this is a problem that we all sometimes go through, is because we think about, hey, I can do many things and I have this capability and I have a business stream. But the moment you start narrowing and niching it down to one market, one problem, one audience, what I talked about the previous one becomes easy for you to do. You understand the problem easier, you're able to solve it faster, and you're able to scale in that market faster because more people come to know about you, right? You've got to start creating this part of this solution in a way that you can scale and solve for. Now, even if you are an individual contributor, you have a small team, you need to start thinking about, okay, one market, when you understand the problem, one of the big problems for us, for example, right, we are solving for 2 big problems. One problem is the EBITDA problem. How do we make these companies more profitable, right? That's our core focus, one of our top focus. We're slowly branching it out by opening up for the same market, for the same audience. Do you also need resilience, right? Because we are into predictive decision making and things like that. So how do we use the same audience to help them to solve? Again, it is predictive. Again, it is decision making. But how do you kind of look at the same audience, same market, but slightly different problem? So Shashi, you were asking a question. What was a single action or channel that got you the first paying client? So my thank you for that question. So my channel was that it was an offline channel. My first customer was an offline channel. And so I'll touch upon this. Since you asked the question, I'll kind of hold it here and I'll answer the question slightly. So there are two parts of any channel, right? So one is the online, the digital channel. One is an offline channel. Most people think that if you do everything online, you will get lots of clients. That is not the reality of the situation. You increase your presence, you increase your visibility through a online channel. You create the volume, right? You create the mass through an online channel, and you create the depth through an offline channel. Because when see, one is to know somebody online and all of that. But if you are especially working in a B2B environment and not a B2C environment, if your product or your value of your service is a higher price point, most people still now would like to have a conversation, get the confidence before giving you business. So what my recommendation would be, improve your visibility component through the online, the digital platforms, and then use the offline to bring depth. And when you have the depth, you are able to focus on a smaller number of people, focusing on the depth so that you can get business from them. So that would be my way of solving it. That is how I got my first client. So I was growing visibly in this thing, but the work came through someone who connected with me through that online model, but then had more conversations, couple of set of conversations before I got my major client, right? One major client came through in that way. So hopefully that has answered your question, but extremely important is that you go after that kind of a model in which you will be able to succeed. Do let me know if you are able to answer, Shashi, or you can, if you have some other questions, you can always drop it in. All right. The next one essentially that I would talk about in addition to the niche is, you've got to now start, once you have identified your niche, once you've identified your area, you will need to find a nice way to create an offer that will work for the others. And it's very important to remember that you have to find a way that it does not take you in it, in the sense like, you're not selling your own self, right? I will come and work with you for 3 months. Don't ever get into that place, right? That's a very employee thinking. You've got to really start asking, what is it that you want? What is the result that you're looking for? Let us say someone's saying, you're a trainer, right? Let's say you're a trainer and you're a negotiation trainer, right? What is it that you really want to deliver? So when you're having this conversation, always go back to the outcome. What is the outcome that they're looking for? And if you can talk to them in terms of the outcome, then your pricing model will quickly shift from a time element to a value element, right? And I'll tell you the example of someone that I was coaching, and he did exactly the same thing, is to go back and he started completely niching himself because he had a lot of experience of handling these sales teams. He was doing a lot of work with organizations in terms of, he was in the BPO space, in the BPO KPO space, working with the large third-party organizations, and he was into a lot of these deals that you have to have sign up with the bigger companies, and so he was part of those teams. So when he came out and he was working on this, and so he, instead of positioning himself as a sales coach or as all of that, so we kind of narrowed it down to a very specific thing: this negotiations in large deals, right? That is what we positioned him for. So that niche and all of that market positioning, all of that, we can turn it around. And then when we offered this to large organizations, right, we were able to offer his key capability in terms of, not I will do it in 3 months or we'll run it this. We will deliver you this outcome, right? For these many deals will happen. I will work with your X number of colleagues and we'll make sure that these many deals are signed. and then starts becoming the positioning in terms of what is the price point that I want to get in to do this work. So it'll shift quickly from a very tangible, what is your, if you do it for 3 months, every month you get paid 20,000 rupees, so 60,000 rupees. All that will start disappearing, and you will be able to look at it from a very the pricing positioning will become far more easy when you have that kind of conversation. So this is important, and it's extremely important that you need to sit down and really work your way through what this offer is going to look like, and how do you position this offer with your client. So a lot of times you make the person feel, right, this is the kind of value that you are adding. So Shashi, thank you for another question. How do you make buyers feel the pain before you name the solution, right? There are various techniques to do many of these things. My philosophy is that it's important to make the buyer feel the pain, but I think the whole conversation that I work on is that if you start building a good relationship with the client, right, you don't need to use certain gimmicks to make it work, right? And there's a lot of gimmicks out there, things. If you are doing some of those things, it works. I'm not saying it does not work. It's just that my value system is, the way I look at it is that what are the real genuine problems that people are facing? If you can understand that pain, if you can place yourself in that situation, and if you can figure out the right solution, then you don't need to make the guy feel the pain, right? Think about it. You go to a doctor, right? You go to the doctor and you already are in pain. So the doctor doesn't have to make you feel that you're in pain, right? So my philosophy is that if you can genuinely go in, understand the business, and we do this with all of the businesses. We sit down, we understand, we have a conversations, and we don't do it for free. We don't charge people there, because if you understand the problems really well, then the solution we design is going to solve their problem. And if you are in a place where you have not figured out the problem, or your solution that you're building out is not really going to solve any problem, then you need to get into all of these things, like how do you make them feel it, etc. I know that in some cases, like, you can talk about it in terms of, if the client even doesn't know, how will they understand it, right? For example, the Apple conversation, right? Yeah, if I don't know what a cell phone looks like, then how do I understand it? And to solve for that, you need to understand what is the journey that they're going through. What is the journey? They don't understand the pain, but what is the customer journey that they're going through? Where do they really struggle, but they don't feel it as a struggle because they don't know about it? So if you can figure out the customer journey, then figure out, would they buy something like this, right, through that journey? And there is a mechanism, there's a model we teach in the concept stage, called the ladder style of finding out, and with that we can then find out what is the pain, but they don't really understand that pain, but there is a pain that they can actually feel. Then we bring it to light, and then we start positioning that product as a solution to something that will solve the pain. So two different solutions for two different types of clients, but that is the way I would answer in a roundabout way, Shashi. Hopefully. Knowledge management, and most people don't even know what KM is, or have limited misinformation about me. Fantastic. Thank you for bringing this up. Right now, if you think about it, Shashi, it's a good point to, and this is where probably you need to really go back and start thinking. Knowledge management is not a problem, right? Knowledge management is not the problem. What is the absence of knowledge management doing is a problem. And so when you have this conversation, when you have this invent the offer stage, you need to figure out what is it, because the moment you say knowledge management, I don't know where to place you, right? But if you tell me, are you having a certain number of errors? I'm giving you some examples from my experience in Six Sigma or Lean space, right? If I don't have a clear SOP in place and there are mistakes happening, right? For example, if I don't train my nurses really well, right, they are likely to make mistakes. And if I don't have this entire knowledge database in a way that is accessible to the nurses, right? They are going to make mistakes. So the problem that we want to solve is the mistakes that they are making. We are not solving the problem of knowledge management. We are trying to solve how do nurses make less mistakes. And to make less mistakes, one of the solutions is the knowledge component of the nurses. So be it in a manufacturing space or in a hospital space or whichever space that you work with. So think about the problem, think about what are you really solving, and then the solution comes in with that. So you would reinvent your offer to say that I would solve this for you, but you don't start introducing yourself as a knowledge management consultant, etc. That sounds like I don't know really where to use you. Yeah. I'm giving you this for my own example. I started doing, I'm a business consultant and no one knows where to put me. But if I tell them that, are you running, is your profitability less today? I can help you to improve profitability. They want to have a conversation with me. Tell me which business does not want to have a conversation with me if I tell them that I can help you to improve your profitability or I will help you to scale your revenue. They will want to have a conversation with me. Right? Of course, once they have a conversation, then am I capable of offering the right solutions, etc., comes into play, the capability issue. But the moment you start having the right kind of conversation with business owners, because business owners think this way, right? FC, I talked to you about the FC. You've got to really think about it. How does a problem really help them to improve their FC? Right? How does it impact any of their financial metrics? How does it impact their risk metrics? That is also an important thing for any of the businesses. Okay, will I have an accident? Oh, I want to talk about it, right? ESG, whatever it is. All right. So thank you so much for those questions. Great, because it helps me to not just talk through the topics. Thank you so much, Shashi. So the next component of it is essentially deploy your relationship, and this is the hard part. I did talk a little bit about that social capital component, and this is the part where we need to think about relationships that you already have. Yes, I talked a little bit about the relationships that you build up in your work environment may not be directly beneficial, but a lot of people forget that we are, as human beings, we have a large network. It is not the only people we are working with. And a lot of people that we work with, we have lost sight of them. We have lost contact of them. They were our schoolmates, they were our college mates, they were our friends, they were our family members, relations. We don't know. We don't really think about that. So how do we build back our network? How do we start thinking about reviving it? That's a process that has to happen, and there's a subtlety of doing it. The problem is a lot of people then suddenly start calling up, hey, do you have something for me? And that does not work, because people are like, oh, now you remember me, you need something. So there's a subtlety in this that we work very closely with each of the entrepreneurs, each of the business founders, is that how do you revive some of these relationships, and how do you do it in a tactical but effective manner without actually ruffling and without spoiling those and losing sight of what you're trying to do. So this is something we work with. But it has to have a very clear intention. It cannot be random. It should not be hope driven. Okay, I will talk to this person and maybe that person will give me some business. It doesn't work like that. So that is the other component of deploying your relationship. You already have, most of us have. You need to kind of revive it, and how do you strategically build that? And more importantly, once you build it, how do you continue to nurture it? How do you continue to grow it? How do you kind of keep it growing? Now, this is very important especially if you are in a service-based industry, right? Because service industry, a lot of it comes through relationship, it comes through referrals, it comes through that kind of work, right? Especially if you're consultant, if you're trainer, coaching, all of these people, that's kind of a model. If you're a product, it is less about that. It becomes more, you can do it in other ways. You can build up communities, you can do all of those things in that. But if you are purely a service, a lot of your high point clientele might come through relationships. They might come through referrals. So that is an important aspect of how do you develop this relationship. I'll leave it there for the moment. I don't want to kind of jump into all of each of these details. And the last bit is execute and scale. So that's the last part of Stride. And unfortunately, a lot of people who come out of the corporate straight away go into this fifth state, right? This is like, when I used to do Six Sigma, people just jump into the control state, right? So DMAIC, everything they forget about doing the analysis, they forget doing the root cause, simply want to, we should just jump this number, maybe we should improve this metric. And it does not work, because If you have not done the 5 steps before this sixth step will eventually fail. But if you have done the 5 steps well, if you have gotten to the point where you have driven all of these, then execute and scale becomes easy. It becomes also easy to communicate with your team members, and as you build up your teams, etc., it is easy to automate the systems and processes. And then you can start seeing the compounding effect of this starting to grow. So that is one. I would not jump into this would be the last stage of that element. So I know I've spoken for about 60 minutes, and so what I wanted to do right now was to help you to see if where are you in this journey, right? Many of us want to do many things. Well, I want you to scan this QR code if you can. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Scan it, and once you scan it, I want you to take this assessment. Now, this assessment, there is no email address. There is no. I'm not trying to collect any information from any of you, right? It's a very simple, straight away. You take the assessment, and I want you to see where you stand in this journey of in terms of moving from corporate to becoming an entrepreneur. There are three things before, as you kind of pick this, I'll talk about three things that I see, right? And these are what my experience has showed me with other people. One is that some people is going to get on this journey and quickly realize that this is not my cup of tea. Very, very quickly realize it's not my cup of tea. And for them, what I've noticed is that they become far more serious in their corporate employment, but they become far more serious in that. They become structured, they go in for programs because they realize that this entrepreneurship journey is not made for me. I will not be able to sustain it. So they become far more serious. They go and study. They start picking up courses. I've seen them, really focus on their career in a very different way. The second thing that can happen as you go through this assessment and post that is that you might come to a point where you start enjoying this. Oh, I can do this, right? So some of us get into that space. Oh, this is something I love, and this is the journey I want to take for the next 10 years. That's a very small segment of it. And there's a third segment that comes into play in this environment is, hey, I know I need my employment. I need to get that job. I need to make some money. But can I create an alternate source of revenue, which may not give me the 100% of what I'm able to earn, but can it give me 20%, 30% of it? So that if and ever the problem were to become real, if and ever I were to lose that role or the opportunity, or I'm not getting another role or another company, if you're not able to get that opportunity, then you create a model by which you are 25% or 20-30% in this, and you have an alternate source of revenue. If and ever you know that you are slowly building up the social capital, you are able to build out the emotional capital and so on and so forth slowly over a period of time, right? So that is what I would urge you to think about. So yeah, thank you so much. So those of you guys, if you can quickly share, of course, I'm not going to read out your scores, and you understand where you're landing in each of those. It'll give you an idea. So do share. I'm seeing some of you guys share the scores. Thank you so much for that. But it'll kind of help you to understand where you are and where do you want to head. Right now, let me talk a little bit about so what after taking the assessment. So what, right? Now, what I've done is I have tried creating a program. Um, uh, it's a simple model where I've tried creating something called the Stride Zero program. Now, what is the Stride Zero, right? There is no string attached. What I want you to understand is that first, whatever I'm telling might be, it might sound all good, right? Because these are knowledge that you can take. Knowledge is good knowing, but there's a different element to it when you have to practice it, right? Especially if you have to practice it along with what you are doing as a job, then it becomes even more difficult, right? So you have to practice. Now, the reason I want you to do it is I want you to think about this as a program that we want to start. Where what we'll do in this program is that for 3 weeks, and we'll give about 1 hour each week, I will take you through this entire thing. So what is this total program about? Let me expand that and I'll tell you the whole program first. So the entire program is, I want you to be able to test yourself whether which category do you fall into. Are you someone, hey, this is not made for me? Are you someone who said, hey, it is partially made for me, I can create something and I can also create an alternate source of revenue, I can become a plural revenue generation person? And the third component is, I love this, this is what I want to do for the next 10 years. Now, to do that component, what I want you to do is test it out to say that, hey, if I start something in 90 days, can I get my ideal client, one offer ideal client, and start getting business from that person, right? So 90 days is the window that we want to be able to crack this, right? The first business of an ideal client, not any business, not any client, one specific area which you want to be able to scale. So we want to finish this entire STRID in 90 days. That is the total program. To do that, I want to understand, are you ready for it? Do you really want to do it? Or is it only an aspiration? Oh, let me try something and come, right? So what I'm wanting to do is that, because I also want to spend time with, because there are two ways, right? So someone has given me a break. Remember, someone gave me a break to start my first business. I want to feed forward to it. I also want to make sure that 10 other people are also able to start their own businesses and do well. To do this entire thing, I want to get into a program which is Stride Zero, which essentially means that for 3 weeks, you will, for 1 hour every week, I will sit, work with you, and help you to reach a point where you are clear what is it that you would like to do. 3 weeks, 1 hour to 90 minutes, once a week, right? We want to do this. In those 3 weeks, there'll be two-way evaluation. You evaluate me saying that, hey, this is something I want to work with. Is this the guy I want to work with? Or other way around, I will also evaluate, is this the person who is genuinely interested in growing this business, or growing and becoming an entrepreneur? Partial is okay. Not is also okay. Fully want to do it is also okay. But are you able to create that in the 3 weeks of time? Once you do this, then we will get into and say that we will have a conversation to say that you can join our program, which is basically what I call the silver program, right? How do you create your first core client in 90 days? It follows the 30, 60, 90 model. If you think about it, right? We used to do it in corporate, 30, 60, 90. 30 days, shift, niche, ICP, positioning, everything done in 30 days, right? Offer architecture, LinkedIn, digital, offline, capital building, all of that, next 60 days. Last 30 days, discovery calls with clients, proposal sending out, outreach, get the first client, sign up your service agreement with the first client. That is what we want to achieve in 90 days. So it's a two-way conversation, two-way question. If it is something that, if you are ready, if we are wanting to work with you, and you feel we are the right people to work with, then we will get into an agreement to work with each other over a period of next 90 days, then 180 days, and so on and so forth, right? So that is what I'm looking forward. When you have done your assessment, you will see that there is a place called Stride Zero in there. There's a link out there. If you click on that, Stride Zero link, it will take you to a site. It'll give you some idea about what we are doing. Obviously, this is not hard coded. It will change because your businesses are different. Your kind of types of business are different. Some of you might be in the product business, some of you in the services, some of you might be looking at knowledge businesses, whatever, right? You know, digital business. I don't know, right? Different business. You could be running a fabrication plant. You could be doing anything, right? What we want to do is to see how we can help you to get to that point. So we will start to fill up that. There's a WhatsApp form at the bottom. Fill that up, and once you fill that up, I'll be able to review it. I'll sit down, we'll get on a one-on-one conversation, and then we start with the Stride Zero program. Okay, the Stride Zero is a free program. There is no pricing in it. I want to be able to work with you. I want you to help that make that decision, which way you are looking to work with, and how can we help you in specific ways. In 3 weeks, I will answer all the questions that you have in terms of any specific challenges that you are facing, etc. And post that, if you feel that the next step is for us to go back and start working on the silver program, we will then take a call on that. That is what I have for this entire session. Happy to take any specific questions if you have. Otherwise, we will call it evening, and hopefully you can review this. This is available on LinkedIn again later on. So if you want to go back, relook at it, anything else, do it. Again, if you want to reach me on something, you can just put in the form, or you also have my LinkedIn, so you can always message me, direct message me, and we can be in touch with each other. So that is all for now. I'll just give it a couple of minutes. If you have any specific questions, I will be happy to take it. Otherwise, I will let you all go. Let me give you a couple of minutes. There are a few questions coming in. Thank you so much for that. So yes, the Stride Zero is a free program. It is not 101 per se with me. We will work in a cohort. But yes, if I feel that there is a particular need for you to be in a one-on-one session, absolutely will be glad to set up that one-on-one session. Remember, again, I am not trying to make this about the financial model. I'm trying to figure out a model by which we can work and help you to scale. You can help you to make decisions if you want to get out of the corporate, help you to make a decision whether you should stay in the corporate and start something in the side. I want to be able to help you with that. Perfect. I see another questions. Will you help us with finance and other aspects? So again, each business will go through a certain cycle, right? Many of us might need investor, right? We might have to go and look at, if you have a product, and you might need investor support, right? Now, each of this will go through a certain different channels, right? For example, the investor, I'm not the greatest guy to talk to you about investment. There are far better people who are into investment, etc. But what we will be able to do is, so you're not able to see. I will send out. Let me quickly. Sorry. All right. So I think there are a few other questions. So yes, so we will connect you with certain investing groups. There are investing preparation workshops that happen. We do, and so we can connect you with the right set of audience and people who can help you to do that. Right. Sashi, no worries. I'll send you the Stride Zero link. I will, if it is not there, just I'll drop you a quick message on DM. Just drop me a message, and I will drop you the link on that. Dhanraj, I worked in the private equity environment, looking for valuation enhancement in industrial products. So let us talk, Dhanraj, as to what you're looking to do. Drop a message, either if you can. Drop me a message on LinkedIn, and you're coming through LinkedIn. So if you can drop me a quick message on LinkedIn, we can have a quick conversation to understand, and then we can also pick up how we can support and help. Is that okay? Will you help us to set up? Okay. So organize. So yes, we have a team that will actually help you to if you're not registered, right? So you are working the corporate and you don't know how to register. We have a team of people who will help you to figure that out, how to make it happen, what kind of companies that we can set up for you. We will help you through all of that. That's the least of the problems that we have seen. It is probably the easiest part of the job. It's not about setting up the company that's difficult, but I think once you set up the company, what do you want to do with the company is more important. But to answer your question, yes, we will help you to set up that company. We can do that for you. And across India, we have no problem. We have network of people who will help you with all of that. That finance, human resources. These are not the problem areas that we have seen. Investment is unless, and a lot of people, and I see another question on investment. I think a lot of people are coming up with products, and some of those products even don't make sense, right? So there's a lot of fatigue among even the investors, and fatigue in the sense that they're looking and saying, hey, why are we not seeing better ideas? Why can't we get better places where they want to invest? There is money, they want to invest, but I think that's more of a challenge than. So I've seen a lot of not great ideas getting pushed in just in the name of startup, and I want funding. So I think that's where, and I want to make sure that if you are coming with us, that kind of thing is nipped in the bud up front, it's not a good idea. We don't mind sitting down and having that conversation, telling you it's not think about something better, right? And we can help you there. So yes, so with all of those, I think that's for the evening. I think yes, there are a few more questions, but I will pick them up as just drop it in the. You have my LinkedIn connect, and you can DM me, and I will drop off all of those answers. With that, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure having this conversation with all of you. And hopefully we see you. I will hope to see all of you in the Stride Zero program. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the evening. Take care. Bye bye.